Bosun! Here, master, what cheer? A big theme I've been discussing this month is the relation between director and text. Every director who adapts Shakespeare has to figure out a way to make the text work for them. And as you've seen, there are many different strategies. Our first movie sold the text. The second delivered the text. The third interpreted the text. But this is a really interesting case. The text rearranged altogether. That text is The Tempest. It's an exotic play, a magical play, a drama, a comedy, a meditation on power and civilization, and to many, Shakespeare's last artistic will and testament. And again, quoted by everyone. Everyone.
Brave New World.
Everyone.
The stuff that dreams are made of. Huh?
And the person who rewrote that text was Derek Jarman. I've talked about him a little on the show in riff reviews of his first two films, but I don't think in either I've managed to give a full idea of who he was and how important he was to British underground culture. And British overground culture. After getting his start doing the set design for Ken Russell's The Devils, yes, that one, he moved on to feature films, as well as music videos like this one for The Smiths. He was one of the first British filmmakers to talk openly about homosexuality in the decade following its decriminalization. His earlier films may have set a major visual form for early music videos, and he's the reason you've ever heard of Tilda Swinton. But before all that, he did a very bizarre adaptation of The Tempest. Did some strange things to it.
Set The Tempest in Nazi Germany.
Nope. Weirder. He set it indoors. That's insane. I know it seems like a weird thing to get hung up on, but pretty much every artistic depiction of The Tempest since its first performance has kind of agreed on where it's set. Outdoors, on a bare island with majestic rocky cliffs surrounded by great raging waves. It's a stuffy Caribbean vacation. But here the action's set in a claustrophobic ruin of a Warwickshire mansion. It's like staging Pirates of the Caribbean inside of Downton Abbey. It's strange, but it's not entirely out of left field. The location, Stoneleigh Abbey, probably housed some early performances of The Tempest, and it was likely lit entirely by candlelight. It kind of works. Prospero's Island doesn't have any real geographic location. It's like somewhere between the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, or maybe West Africa, or the moon, or Altair Ford, whatever. Symbolically, it isn't part of civilization, and it's all in shadow. All of it. The island hinted at through the darkness. We're not in some capital R romantic wilderness, we're in the land of symbols. Jean Cocteausville. Interior decorating by Velázquez. And shot like an Andy Warhol film. Get your little superstars together in a dingy warehouse and make a movie. But I think I'm making this film sound really dry. Attack dwarves! I mean, this is still Derek Jarman. This is still a guy with a serious weird streak. Remember, we're talking about a guy whose first movie was entirely in Latin. And his next movie was about a time-traveling Elizabeth I meeting punks. He once started a movie with a guy having sex with a Caravaggio painting. Jesus, the guy made a movie that was literally nothing but the color blue. It is called Blue, and it is brilliant. Derek Jarman had a very punk rock approach to filmmaking. Take what you have around you and use it to build an identity. He started making films around the same time that punk became a subculture. Hell, Jubilee was all about the punk movement. And time-traveling tutors and Old Man Hitler and yeah. But Jarman was not a punk himself. He had a very love-hate relationship with the punk movement. On the one hand, he admired its disgust in the modern world and sympathized with that viewpoint, but on the other hand, he thought it was an intellectual dead end. He was much more enamored of the early modern era, or at least an idealized notion of it. Jubilee was all about this. It was literally about Elizabethans meeting punks, and it included Ariel as a character, who was controlled by John Dee. John Dee was Elizabeth I's court astrologer and a popular candidate for the basis of Prospero's character, and Jarman gives his Prospero a staff resembling Dee's personal glyph. Jarman's interests clashed intriguingly with the subcultures he associated with. Like, he cast punk legends like Toya Wilcox and Adam Ant and several Rocky Horror alumni, But then again, he was fascinated by alchemy and esoteric magic, the sort of things that hippies revived in the 60s, the same sort of idealism that punk fought against. His entire body of work is built on clashing ideologies. He is very un-punk, and very un-Shakespeare, but very, very Derek Jarman. And his stark individuality is what drives the... Play the music. So far this month, this film is the biggest departure from the text. Deliberately cut up, William Burroughs style, and rearranged to fit the needs of this particular director. A lot of the liberties he takes are visual. It shows up in the casting. In a very punk move, Jarman cast many of his friends multiple times. You may recognize a lot of these guys from Jubilee. There's a punkette, exoticized Miranda, played by musician Toya Wilcox. She was the gun-toting Peach Fuzz woman in Jubilee. And also a coated, gay, thin white duke of an Ariel, played by Carl Johnson. He was the very nice incestuous fella. Ew. And a gleefully insane, beautifully camp Caliban, played by Jack Burkett. He was the camp guy.
Thou strokest me, and made much of me, and then I loved thee.
Also, he sucks breast milk as an adult. Yeah. I want my bitty. This is supposed to be Caliban's mother, Sycorax, the former ruler of the island. Believe it or not, the corpulent lady playing Sycorax here has a role in Return of the Jedi. Ha 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 ha. Well, actually, you're not far off. There she is. But the most interesting character treatment is of Prospero himself. Most traditional depictions of him show him as old and wizened, a benign sage working his magic on the world. A common interpretation of him is as Shakespeare's own self-image. The magic that he works is a metaphor for writing, and since this is Shakespeare's last solo play, Prospero renouncing his magic at the end reflects Shakespeare's personal decision to retire. Okay, fine, but if Prospero is Shakespeare, Shakespeare's a prick.
If thou neglect'st, or dost unwillingly what I command, I'll rack thee with old cramps, fill all thy bones with aches. So, slave, hence.
He's not some kind and benevolent artist, he's Walter White. He's a manipulative tyrant who uses others to enact his petty revenge, and it takes him the entire play to finally forgive his enemies. Yes, the play itself ends happily, everybody wins, no one's hurt, but until that point, Caliban is abused to the point of mutiny, Miranda imprisoned, and Ariel, well, this version treats him like a put-upon blue-collar worker.
Let me remember thee what thou hast promised, which is not yet performed me. Let me remember thee what thou hast promised, which is not yet performed me.
Boss, I think I deserve a raise. Boss, I think I deserve a raise. At least that's a popular alternative interpretation. Jarman cast a younger actor, Heathcote Williams, as Prospero. He doesn't fit the traditional image of Prospero, not old and wizened. Here he's younger, a bit more energetic, like an old Hollywood mad scientist. He's not unlike that other character in British fiction. You know, the one who lives alone except for a younger female companion, and he's very learned in the ways of the universe, and he's a political refugee. Reverse the jelly custard of the Girana Alons. It'll come to me. Modern readings of The Tempest often focus on the theme of power. Prospero holds the power, and we are to question how he uses it. I think a big reason for this shift is because of the power Prospero represents to us. That being colonial power. It's very easy to read a post-colonial interpretation, though I doubt Shakespeare intended it. The most likely inspiration for the play was William Strachey's account of the shipwreck of the Sea Venture at Bermuda in 1610, and it's intriguing to consider that this romance about a faraway island was inspired by real-life discoveries during his lifetime. Of course, Shakespeare couldn't know that Europeans would start establishing colonies abroad built on the exploitation and dehumanization of native populations who would be subject to various attempts to civilize them with European philosophies. But we know that. And so we can't help but see this story about a European taking over an island's native population for his own gain through our understanding of history. After all, Shakespeare was alive when the first English statesman proposed an overseas colonial British Empire. And that statesman was John Dee, real-life Prospero. This reading ties back into a recurring theme of Jarman's, and that of the punk movement, disgust with the modern world. God save the Queen, the fascist regime.
Oh, how beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it.
Yep. Beauteous. Soak it in. Well, you know how the phrase brave new world is used to describe dystopias? The idea of the hollowness of the modern world is hinted at through the gloomy cinematography and the tense relationships between Prospero and his decaying household, but this climatic scene, as batshit insane as it is, sums up a lot of Jarman's main ideas. You have the sailors, the abrupt shift in brightness and color palette, the classical music played at twice the speed, and then, as everything in the story gets resolved, suddenly...
Don't know why there's no sun up in the sky, stormy weather.
Get it? Yeah. Tempest, stormy weather, ha ha. This is Elizabeth Welch, a legendary blues singer in her last film role, and, well, there's a reason she's here. There's an undercurrent to this. It's the end of the movie. Prospero has forgiven Antonio, Caliban renounced his rebellion, Miranda hooked up with boring guy, and yet, listen to these lyrics.
Life is bare, gloom and misery everywhere, stormy weather, just can't get my poor self together.
All of that gaiety and sunny coloring, and we're left with the reminder that this too may end. Up to this point, Jarman moves snippets around here and there for plot and pacing reasons, but this is a huge change. In Shakespeare's script, there's a masque performed by fairies, one which Prospero dissipates, and in the last act, there's a celebration and the promise of a wedding, which ends with everyone leaving the island and Prospero renouncing his magic. Here's the change. Shakespeare's The Tempest ends with Prospero giving up his magic and asking for the pardon and indulgence of the audience. Jarman's The Tempest cuts that speech out entirely. Instead, it ends with Prospero keeping his power and reminding us that these revels now are ended, and they are stuff as dreams are made on.
And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
So he's not giving up his power, he's denying it ever existed. One interpretation of this is that Jarman's showing the fragility of this brave new world and such people in it. That being, this brave new world and these people in it. And this idea fits with Jarman's ideology. Our current world is dying and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Jubilee was all about that. So was his war requiem. Hell, he made a dialogue-free movie that was called The Last of England. The modern world is hollow and collapsing on its own weight. And he's saying that by borrowing someone else's words. This is not William Shakespeare's The Tempest. This is entirely Derek Jarman's The Tempest. And that's utterly fascinating. This film is a radical departure from the text in order to say something very contemporary with antique words. And dancing sailors and rocking horses and yeah. Again, this is one of his most normal movies. Just wait till I get to his late period. Nothing but the color blue.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy's feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, and they keep falling. So I just did me some talking to the sun.